Hey there, writer rebels, and welcome back to School Author Academy. Today we are going to be talking about Anaphora and Epistrophe. Hello everyone, it's me, Scarlett Kol, young adult author, YouTuber, and storyteller, and I am back with my Back to School Author Academy. That's right, we are going to be talking about literary devices over the month of September and brush everybody up on all of those fun things that they can use to punch up their prose, as well as get them ready for National Novel Writing Month, which comes up in November. So today we're going to be talking about two devices, but they kind of tie in together, and that's Anaphora and Epistrophe. And yes, those are really difficult, but kind of fun to say. So we will be talking about them individually and when we can use them, as they are kind of very similar. But before I get started, if you are enjoying this series or do you want to check out more videos from me, make sure you're hitting that subscription bar and the notification bell below this video so you don't miss any of my content. And if you do like this video, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up down there as well, as it lets YouTube know that this is something worth watching. So, Anaphora and Epistrophe. Two very fancy words to say repetition. So if you have ever worked with an editor before, you've probably heard that repetition is not a good thing. You don't want to be repeating words all the time. And that does make sense. You don't want to talk about the girl who took the chair, then sat in her chair, and then leaned on the edge of her chair to watch her teacher. It just gets very repetitive and is not really great prose and actually really clunky to read. So you don't want to be using repetition just willy-nilly. However, when you use repetition with a purpose, it can sometimes totally elevate your writing from okay to awesome. So today we are going to show some examples of using Anaphora and Epistrophe, as well as where you might want to use them and some places that you might want to avoid using those things. So let's get started. The first one is Anaphora. Anaphora is the use of particular words and sentence structures in succession of each other to get a point across. So you will see this in a lot of different things you've probably read before, as well as the examples that I'm going to provide in a second. Epistrophe is kind of the opposite of Anaphora in the sense of using the same word at the end of sentences in succession to get a point across. And even though they are similar concepts, they are used in different ways sometimes and can be used to have different impacts. So I'll talk about them separately, even though some of the things can be discussed together. So Anaphora, for instance, is the use of the words up front, like I mentioned. So let's say we have a particular scene where we have a character who is looking at a girl in front of him. Her hair fluttered in the wind as she stood on the hill, the sun setting behind her. She was beautiful, amazing, and mine. Okay, nothing particularly wrong with that. I did write that on the fly, so if there's some grammar issues, just ignore that for now. But that last line, she was beautiful and amazing and mine. It's very declarative. It could be very romantic. Maybe if this is a thriller, they've just found their next victim. It could be very ominous, whatever. But that last sentence, she was beautiful, amazing, and mine. Could we use something a little bit better? Absolutely. We can use Anaphora in this particular situation and say something like, her hair fluttered in the wind as she stood on the hill, the sun set behind her. She was beautiful. She was amazing. She was mine. It's telling the exact same thing, but it just has that impact of the repetition of she was, she was, she was, and using the same sentence structure, 3 words. She was X, she was X, she was X. So that kind of gives that gut punch to that scene. It gives that little bit of extra oomph at the end to really get the point across. And depending on what emotion you are trying to portray, that could really suck the reader in a little bit more than that other sentence. Means the exact same thing, but it's going to have that kind of poetic, melodic quality to it that people are going to remember more than the she was beautiful, amazing, and mine sentence structure. It's also going to vary the sentence structure within that particular paragraph. As you notice, those other ones were longer sentences, but so by putting those little almost staccato kind of short sentences at the end, it's going to vary that sentence structure too and make it even more impactful. So this is an example of when you could use Anaphora to impact your writing. And there are definitely other reasons to use anaphora, but this is the ones that I particularly like the most. When you have declarative kind of sentences, when you are summarizing things, when you are trying to hammer home a specific point, emotion, or feeling that you want the reader to feel. That's a great place to use anaphora. Epistrophe, on the other hand, is the repetition of the last word. So we're going to be using it in a similar way, but maybe for a different reasons. So let's say you have a character who has just failed a test. So they're going to get their test back from their teacher. They're going to look at it and either in their head or out loud, they're going to go, I failed? I never fail. I don't fail. How did I fail? So obviously this is a little bit of repetitiveness. You're going to see that epistrophe, the words fail, fail, failed in there. And how we are using that is we are showing that character's emotion. We could very easily have said something very similar in the terms of, I failed. I usually do so well on tests. I don't understand. It's going to have the exact same information portrayed to the reader. But when you hear the sentences, I failed, I never fail. How did I fail? You almost hear that tone of voice. You can hear the frustration. You can hear the confusion. You can hear all of that stuff in those lines because of the repetition of the word fail. It adds an emphasis on that word. It creates almost a theme within those sentences that your reader is going to be able to see how that character is feeling just from that description. Even if you didn't put anything else, any actions, any dialogue tags around that, you're going to have a very different feeling reading the first example than you are of the second example. It seems a little bit more calm. They don't seem as irate. They don't seem as confused. By using the repetition of the word fail, it has amplified that concept to the reader. So when would you want to use epistrophe? When you are trying to convey emotion to the reader, like in the last example, this is a really great way to do it. Also, if you are trying to convey a specific theme or show that a particular word is important, if you are trying to foreshadow something and you really want to drive home a particular concept or a particular word, this is a really good way to do it. It also makes things a lot more memorable. If you've ever heard the line from Jack Nicholson from, I believe it's A Few Good Men, it's the truth, you can't handle the truth. It very simply could have been truth, you can't handle it. It doesn't have that same catchy impact that truth, you can't handle the truth does, that people remember. It makes it iconic. It gives it that little bit of something that elevates it from the rest of the words around it. And the last reason you might want to use epistrophe is to convey confusion. So in a lot of situations where someone is confused, they may be super hyper focused on a particular item or thing or person. So in this example that I gave about failing, that person is going to be focused on the word fail. This is something that they are very hyper aware of. If you have somebody who is dealing with amnesia or has just come out of a car crash or is kind of dealing with shock, they may be hyper focused on a concept or a place, or I need to go home. I just want to go home. Can somebody please take me home? It's the word home, home, home again, but you're really going to get that feeling of confusion and desperation that you wouldn't necessarily get otherwise if somebody had just said, can somebody please take me home? I need to go there. I really want to leave this place. It doesn't have that same punch as using the same word over and over and over again. So what are some areas that you wouldn't want to use anaphora or epistrophe? Well, you probably want to use them sparingly. Like every literary device I'm pretty much going to discuss, you don't want to use it too much. These are the spices that you add to your story. So if you add too much spice, it's going to overtake everything. And if you are repeating the same words over and over and over again, see what I did there? Then it's going to get a little excessive for your reader and going to throw them out of the story. You want to use it where it's going to have the most impact and then let it be. The other thing you want to be cautious of is to use it in the right place. Even if you are using it sparingly, you're going to want to use it where you want to get the maximum punch out of it. So when you are using repetition, do make sure that you are looking at the places that you are using it and that that's the best place to use it. If you are using anaphora, it's great that you're having that at the end of your paragraph. It's going to drive things home, but would it be better at the end of the next paragraph? Is it ending a scene? It's very common to end a scene, but maybe it needs to go a little bit further or a little bit earlier in your prose to really have the maximum potential that it could be used in. Similarly, when you use epistrophe, if it's going to kind of give that emotion, confusion, focus from your character, you don't want to use it where the character isn't supposed to be emoting that much, because it's really going to almost add a little too much melodrama to what you're writing. And both of these devices do have the risk of adding tons of drama to your story, which can be an awesome, awesome thing. But if your story shouldn't have that much drama, or the genre doesn't really allow for that, then this might be a little too much to your reader. So just be very careful of where you're using it and that you're using it in the right places. And my last caution is about how many times you repeat using these techniques. There's no hard and fast rule about how many you need to have. You can have as little as 2, as many as 100 if you wanted to, but obviously it's just like a hammer. You're gonna hit it to have that impact, but if you hit it too many times, you're just gonna break it. So 3 seems to be a nice number. It's usually enough to get the point across, but not too much that it's just going to be obtrusive within your work. So keep it under wraps on how many times you're going to repeat yourself using either of these techniques. So that's all I have to say about these 2 repetition techniques. Hopefully you'll be able to use them into your prose and really make an impact with what you're writing. If you enjoyed this, make sure that you're hitting the thumbs up button below this video to let YouTube know it's something worth watching. And if you don't want to miss a video from me, you can hit that subscription bar and the notification bell, and they will let you know every time I put out new content. I really hope that you're enjoying this series, and I hope you guys have a great day. I will see you all next time.